How about EPI? We said that how to diagnose EPI, but addressing and treatment of EPI is also as important. EPI is treated with pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. Usually the minimum amount is 30,000 units, and it's important to tell your patients that to consume the first pill with the first bite of the meal. If they delay any time between 15 or 20 minutes before or after, pancreatic enzyme will not be as effective. How about you give your patients a pancreatic enzyme and you realize that the patient is not improving? It's very important to know that there is no laboratory measure to actually assess the response to pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. Response is based on clinically how the patient is doing in terms of abdominal bloating, diarrhea, and the consistency of the stool that they feel. The first thing to consider is inadequate dosing. Sometimes patients respond well with just increasing the number of the tablets that they take with each meal. The second most important thing is non-compliance. You have to really make sure your patients are consuming at least 3 meals a day and they're taking their creons with each meal as well. In some patients, because the creon is losing its effects because of acid denaturation of the enzyme. It's also important to consider that some cases that you see failure to respond, maybe another etiology is going on, such as a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is quite common in patients with chronic pancreatitis and EPI. So endocrine pancreatic insufficiency or pancreatogenic diabetes. It happens in almost 45% of patients with chronic pancreatitis. It's important to remember the lack of glucagon and low insulin in this type of diabetes leads to higher frequency of treatment-induced hypoglycemia. The pancreatogenic diabetes happens with higher frequency in patients with longest-standing duration of chronic pancreatitis, those with prior partial pancreatectomy, and early onset of calcific disease. It's recommended to screen patients with chronic pancreatitis with annual fasting blood glucose and hemoglobin A1C. It is very, very important to remember that new onset diabetes in patients with chronic pancreatitis is almost a red flag for possible underlying malignancies, such as pancreatic adenocarcinoma. It's very important to know that as a result of EPI, the patients with chronic pancreatitis, they are affected with certain level of vitamin and mineral deficiency. The most common vitamins are fat-soluble vitamins that would be affected, and is recommended to check the level of these vitamins, including vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin K, regularly, and replete any deficiencies by supplements. Bone mineral density scan is very important because osteoporosis is seen in almost 25% of patients with chronic pancreatitis, and osteopenia is seen in also 40% of patients with chronic pancreatitis. So this is another important factor to keep in mind and screen the patient accordingly and treat them as needed. Chronic pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer. Always patients with chronic pancreatitis are scared about the long-term consequence. The lifetime risk increased by 16-fold just 2 years after the diagnosis of chronic pancreatitis, but the risk decreased to 3-fold by 9 years after diagnosis. Only 5% of the patients with chronic pancreatitis develop pancreatic cancer over a 20-year period follow-up. So most society guidelines, they're saying that a screening should be only recommended for high-risk individuals, those with genetic mutation and family history, and also should be a mutual conversation between physician and the patients to decide what sort of screening modalities to proceed with. In a lot of institutions, not even without having any sort of predisposition factor for pancreatic cancer, patients with chronic pancreatitis, they offer sort of modality of a screening with either MRI or endoscopic ultrasound every 3 years, which is also a very reasonable approach if the mutual decision is made. It's important to know that patients with chronic pancreatitis, they do develop acute flare-up, either as a result of some other etiologies that is still ongoing, or there is something that is not modifiable, or the pain is not controlled over time. During acute flare, it's very important to focus on supportive care, Keep the patient in PO for the period of time that they feel nauseous, they're not able to tolerate PO. Focus on hydrating them and bowel rest and TPN if it's needed. However, it is important to encourage the patient to start feeding orally as early as they're ready to tolerate food. It is also important to focus on assessing of the complication of acute and chronic pancreatitis. This could be a pseudocyst or peripancreatic fluid collection that could be managed by drainage and the patient feel better. Could be as focusing on duodenal and bile duct compression and obstruction. That could also be managed with endoscopic intervention. Chronic pancreatitis over time can also lead to pseudoaneurysm and splenic vein thrombosis and gastric varices. So it's important to remember in these patients, for example, if they present with GI bleeding, to consider gastric varices amongst the differential diagnosis as well. And it's very important whenever it comes with acute flare after being a long period of time doing pain-free to consider to ruling out pancreatic adenocarcinoma or cancer as after the acute episode heal. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you can find the information provided in this lecture useful in your practice.